November 23rd, 4 new cards for Kobolds and Catacombs have been revealed. Playlist is in the top right if you want to check out my showcases of the other cards. First up, we have Benevolent Djinn, 3 mana, 2/4 common paladin elemental that at the end of your turn restores 3 health to your hero. So it's basically the grown-up version of Friendly Bartender. 3 mana, 2/4 isn't an amazing stat line, but the 4 health does give this minion a better chance to stay alive and heal your hero for more over time. It's sort of like Earthen Ring Farseer that only heals your hero, has more defensive stat distribution, and can possibly heal you for more over time. But I don't think this card will see much play. It's a good tech card against aggro, it heals your hero for a good amount, and the continuous heal might force your opponent to spend resources to destroy it. But in any non-aggro matchup, you'll probably still have full health on turn 3. So if you play Djinn on curve, it's only a 2/4. That is, unless your opponent has small minions, and maybe they can't trade into Benevolent Djinn cleanly, so that small amount of chip damage they might want to send to face will end up just being healed by Djinn at the end of the turn. So the card's effect may have more of an impact than Friendly Bartenders does, but I still think healing your hero is not going to be worth the mediocre stats. If the meta does have a few aggro decks, and certain control decks really have trouble in early game like Warlock, then I could see Benevolent Djinn being put in to extend the game. Either way, I'm glad Blizzard printed a card to tech against aggro. Next up is Grizzled Guardian, 8 mana 3/5 rare beast for druid with taunt and death rattle, recruit 2 minions that cost 2 or less. Okay, so I'd say that a 3/5 with taunt could pass as 4 mana value. This means that the death rattle's 2 recruit minions have to make up that remaining 4 mana. But the thing about 8 mana minions is they actually have to be a lot more than just 8/8 in stats to be playable. And a lot of these druid minions that are 4 or less mana aren't really great for the recruit effect, because they end up losing value because they're a choose one or battlecry card. And plus, Grizzled Guardian needs to die before it recruits the minion, so you end up having to pay the 8 mana in advance before getting the full stats. The one place I could see this card working is in a N'Zoth Druid. Hadronox already synergizes with N'Zoth, and this card's taunt and death rattle fits in perfectly. If you have enough taunts, you can use them to protect your face when you end up giving board control by playing Grizzled Guardian. It's a really slow card, and the value you end up getting from it, even with N'Zoth, is a bit up in the air. Another part of recruiting is if your deck doesn't have any minions that meet the requirement, like run out of minions that cost 1 to 4 mana, then this death rattle won't do anything. So if you played this card in a game a couple of times, and you summon it with N'Zoth in the late game, its death rattle might not even recruit you any minions. I think it's going to be too tough getting this slow card to work, so I honestly don't think it's going to see play. Next up is King Togwaggle, 8 mana 5/5 legendary neutral with a battle cry. Swap decks with your opponent. Give them a ransom spell to swap it back, and this ransom spell costs 5 mana and does just that. This is a great card. It only swaps decks, which means any cards in your hand you'll be able to hold onto. My first instinct is playing Hunter, matching up against a Highlander Priest, and then on turn 10 playing Togwaggle and 2 trackings to remove 6 cards from their deck and hopefully mess up their combo. The great thing about this card is you can do whatever you want with the 2 mana on the turn you play Togwaggle, but after that it's in control of your opponent. They'll draw one of your cards, and if they want to spend the 5 mana that turn, they can get their deck back. But if they don't mind it too much, they can take advantage of your weak 8 mana 5/5 play and take control of the board. Swapping the decks also means you know the cards in the deck your opponent is drawing from, but they also know yours. Another combo this card could be if your opponent has Ice Block, you can get them down to 1 health, get yourself into Fatigue, and then swap decks, killing them before they can even cast the ransom spell. I don't think Fatigue damage transfers through decks. I think it keeps track according to the player, so you won't be able to deal massive amounts of damage with this effect, but the combo possibilities with this card are pretty great. Swapping the deck is definitely going to be fun, but the card could end up being 8 mana 5/5, annoy your opponent and make them spend 5 mana. I don't know, I feel like Hearthstone has needed a card like that, and if for some reason this card ends up being super toxic, it will be funny to come back to this video. But last up is Temporus, 7 mana 6/6 legendary priest dragon with the battle cry. Your opponent takes 2 turns, then you take 2 turns. Wow, Blizzard is going crazy with these cards, and I love it. Temporus is probably the most situational card of all time. If your opponent has a lot of minions or cards, you probably don't want to play it. If you have low health or want to maintain board control, you probably don't want to play it. But if your opponent doesn't have a lot of cards, that's probably the best time to play it. Temporus is basically like skipping the mage quest and giving both players time warp, and I have no idea if it's worth it, especially if you're the one that has to go second. My instinct is that this is one of those cards that works if you're already ahead on board. Like, I think this card could work in Highlander Priest, and almost guarantees 30 damage with the use of its hero power over the 2 turns and 20 mana, but if you're in the position to give your opponent the 2 turns in the first place, then you're probably already going to win the game. Those first 2 turns are such an advantage. If you've ever missed a turn checking on your hot pocket, you come back to a game game and your hero has half their health and an enemy board filled with minions. I think in Highlander and maybe even Dragon Priest, this card could be a signal to your opponent that either you kill me in the next 2 turns or I'm gonna win the game. It'll be really interesting to see if this card can fit in a deck. I don't know how much better Temporus will make decks, but if there is one thing I think it will be able to do, is it will speed up the game time of some control matchups. Well, those are all the cards that have been released today. I will be back tomorrow for more. Check out the playlist if you missed another video, and subscribe if you want my opinions as more cards come out. But until then, ta-ta.